right. So we're trying to get our organic gardening going. We're going to do the no-till method this year. So we had our garden last year. Got, I guess, kind of a natural cover crop there. And hopefully this will work.
Good evening, y'all. This is Spencer Cat
coming at you live from the Hillbilly Think Tank. And this is live from Tunnel Hills here in Hardin County, where I'm running for Magistrate District 3. And y'all, I am the educated hillbilly. No, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron, because y'all, there have been educated, erudite, emancipated hillbillies in Kentucky ever since my kin came through the Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone. And we have been here since that time, searching for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we've actually found it in Hardin County and in other counties here in Kentucky. But primarily, right now, we're worried about this county and state losing it to the shenanigans that we keep seeing in the federal government that are affecting all of us. So what do we have yesterday? A big old lying liars show. Yeah. Now, whether I believe it or not, whether I believe it was staged or not, that's neither here nor there. Because whether it was staged or not, it is absolutely just part of a flim-flam show to get us distracted, gaslight us, and, it's a useful tool. Whether you believe it was staged, whether you say, hey, no, it wasn't staged, it was real, we are taking our eyes off of really important matters of so many different things right now. Just one of them. Of course, we know that the Flim Flam artist in chief has no idea how to make a real deal when it comes to something besides a script on TV where you can say, you're fired. And that was just scripted for 14 years. People watched that, bought into it, thought this guy was a freaking genius. Well, he's been proven that he's not. And many of us are tired of it. So just like any other good showman, even if someone goes off script on the show, a good showman can use that off script for their advantage. So I believe what happened last night was off script. I don't believe if it was staged, you would have seen Stephen Miller using his pregnant wife as a shield as he pushes her out of, the firing zone, and uses her as his bullet catcher. I don't think you would have seen quite a few other men behave that way. RFK getting whisked away by Secret Service while leaving his wife stranded behind. You know, yeah. Now there's so many men that like to portray themselves as being the alpha macho types. If it was staged, they would have staged it correctly and not seem like the sissy cucks that they appear to be in that footage. So that's just my 2 cents. Now, regardless, though, even if it was staged, it's still a distraction. Again, I just don't think that they would want to make themselves look as horrible as they did last night. But it's obvious that security was extremely lax, whether by design or because they've let everyone else get cut by Doge. They don't have any good hiring policies. They're requiring you to be a yes man. And so many people are bailing out of positions under the feds right now. So they obviously, from what I saw as a man of military experience and combat experience, those fools that were in charge of security, if they were not doing their job right. That's just from my experience in security in the military. Yeah, that was a crap show. It's what we witnessed. But what are we being distracted from? Let's see. Because immediately they went to the script of everybody. Actually, even before the so-called plot, before the shooter came out, people were all over the internet saying, "Oh, we need to have the East Wing ballroom." And everybody came out immediately talking about that as if after the fact also. And of course, we know that the Flam artist in chief came out with his own little statement about that, because he's just so intent on his little projects. He might as well have been an interior designer instead of the president, because all he's worried about is his interior design, his ground designs, wants to make sure that the Lincoln pool is scrubbed down and painted blue at the bottom or colored blue somehow. Like we give a crap when we are paying, I saw in Louisville, $5.16 for gas, back to being a little bit cheaper here in Hardin County, but still, that's not helping us. Looking at fertilizer, see a lot of tractors sitting idle right now. They shouldn't be. That diesel is not getting cheaper. So this is a distraction operation, whether it was intended to be, which I don't think if it was intended to be, they did a good enough flim-flam show, but they're using it now to their advantage. They think, but I think a lot of us are absolutely dead tired of this crap and would rather see actually done,
I just want to go find
tears there though.
I just want to.
Some of the best crocodile tears. People are asking, where's the blood on this guy? Well, shots fired. What, they weren't good enough to at least nick him? I don't know. Don't even see any snot coming out of him there. I know it would have knocked the snot out of someone if others were on it. But yeah. So yeah, initially reported as dead. The suspected shooter is allegedly now in custody. Well, he is in custody since this came out. But again, it's all distraction. So
it'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room. So everyone should tune in. It's going to be really great. I'm looking forward to hearing it. It'll be funny. It'll be entertaining. There will be some shots fired tonight in the room.
So, isn't it ironic that she put that out there before it happened? Irony? Irony much? If you haven't seen this one, this says, they had a magician that was doing some magic for them right as this was happening. Most people are saying, as Valhalla VFT says, I remember every time I was shot, I was totally chill and grinning ear to ear for 13 minutes later also. You saw the people that were stealing champagne, people videoing it. That's a bunch. That part does make one wonder, but again, as put up here last time, the craziest thing about the shooting is that Trump's name appears in the Epstein files more than Jesus's name appears in the Bible. Still my go-to, right? We've still not seen what's in the Epstein files, but we will be seeing this for quite some time now. We're also, if you weren't aware, allowing the whole Make America Healthy Again movement, which for the most part, I think is a bunch of bunk, but they do have one case that is not bunk, and that's the glycophosphate cases that are being heard around the nation. And this was one of the biggest reasons that the MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again crowd, voted for this administration. Because they said, hey, they put RFK in charge. Now we're going to actually get our healthy initiatives in line. And what happened? A known carcinogen, Roundup, made by Bayer, has now been made to be something that the president says no one's allowed to sue anyone over glycophosphate. It cannot be on the list as being listed as carcinogen because according to the EPA under the last Trump administration, they said, oh, it's not carcinogen, even though we know that so many animals, when they are exposed to it, they get cancer. So Roundup is a carcinogenic. But this administration refuses to label it as such because Bayer was a great donor. And, the donors get what they want, even if it means going back on a huge campaign promise. But again, are we paying attention to that right now when we should be? No, we're highly distracted from it when the Supreme Court is going to hear arguments in this landmark Roundup weed killer case. And Make America Healthy Again moms say it could be a midterm issue. So what they're saying is, all right, this is why they voted for Captain Bone Spurs. Now that he and RFK have abandoned one of their top causes, they're going to be looking elsewhere for the midterms. So do they need a distraction from that? Oh, you betcha they do. Do they need a distraction from the fact that we still have not solved the Iranian debacle and that our ships and Marines now have shoot to kill orders for any Iranian speedboats seen out there, possibly laying landmines, and they need to sink those ships or those little boats that lay the landmines? No, they don't want us to pay attention to that. They don't want us to pay attention to the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is still not open, which is causing all of our gas prices to keep going up, up, up. So to me, this is a flim-flam. This is a distraction. This is not the art of the deal. This guy couldn't make a deal if, he was put in a wet paper bag and the whole deal was they had to break out of it. He would still be constricted to the wet paper bag. We were buying the flim-flam for so freaking long, but now the flim-flam is far too obvious. We've seen the shell game, and we all see now that there's nothing under any of the shells. We've just been seeing them moved around, and it turns out there's nothing under it at all. So people are now just like, not listening to Captain Bone Spurs. Well, we are at a critical juncture in this nation. Will we keep on allowing ourselves to be so completely distracted by things like this White House Correspondents' Dinner that goes amok, that we allow him to get back to his, I don't know, what's the next thing he wants to do? Bombing Cuba? Or should we just allow him to get back to making his ballroom? But the Supreme Court, the court that made the decision about the ballroom, that is, said no, regardless of what happened Sunday, the decision remains the same. But again, I say, we're being distracted. So many key things are going on. Our liberties are being taken away. And this is just another way to get us to start looking at a person whose ratings dip below 31%. That's all this is. So let's remember, right now, we've got to pull together. This guardian of the pedophile party is in its last legs, and it knows it. But that means if it starts to crumble, and as it does, we're going to be seeing a power vacuum. And what is going to end up filling that power vacuum? How crazy are the Epstein class willing to go once they see that their flim-flam master has been shown to be an absolute, utter, incapable idiot? No master of any deal whatsoever. And that's happening now. So midterms are coming up. We've all got to stay focused, stay crystal clear. Here in Kentucky, it's time for us to go to the polls in May and decide who's going to be elected to be on our ballots in the November election. So this is real critical. We need to get real people that are truly capable, truly qualified to stand up for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, who are dedicated to bringing us back to government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Without that type of government, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness becomes far more of a struggle than it's intended to be. We're supposed to have our safeguards. We're supposed to have our rails to protect us from flim-flam masters. But it's obvious they've dropped off. So we must put them back. And the way to do that is to keep the pressure on these gaslighters, not let them gaslight us anymore. Become united. Realize we're all in this together, whether we like it or not. Whether you like your neighbor or not, it's still time to love our neighbor as ourselves. It's still time to say, hey, I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. And if we do that, there's no way we can be divided and we won't fall. As Kentucky's motto says, united we stand, divided we fall. We're becoming less and less, I don't know what do you say, but in love with Captain Bone Spurs. We're falling out of love with Captain Bone Spurs. As we fall out of love with Captain Bone Spurs, are we going to come back and say, neighbor, you know what? I've been looking at you funny for far too long now. Now I see we've got to unite and get in this together. It's not about left versus right. It's not about Republican versus Democrat. It's about who will give us back what is ours already anyway. That is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as our chief projects in life. So only we can take it back. Because again, it's our providence provided, God-given right. And no one can take it from us because they're supposed to be inalienable rights. Meaning no one can take them from you. Doesn't matter where you're from, what you look like, and what you talk like. Those are inalienable rights that everyone is endowed by their creator with, according to some great documents that we've held dear for years and years and years. So back to the drawing board, back to the voting booth, and let's get real serious. Y'all, love your neighbors as yourself. And remember to remember everyone deployed. They're going through what we don't want to have to go through ourselves right now. And I am so glad that after spending my time in the military, there are other folks capable right now. They're carrying a heavy weight for all of us. And we have got to absolutely stand up to this insanity. And if we want to hear anyone talk from that White House telling us that it's our fault that there's too much violent rhetoric coming from people that aren't guardians of the pedophiles, well, let's remind them that this is what has been said by their dear leader. You can talk about Kimmel all you want, as we know that the first so-called lady has been doing. But here's what her husband said. Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people. President, that's what he calls himself, President, Captain Bone Spurs. So he said that about a career FBI man who had also served honorably and with distinction, gaining Purple Heart and other medals in Vietnam, a Marine, Robert Mueller, a Marine that raised his hand and swore an oath to the Constitution to protect the U.S. Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. He did that with the Marines. He did that as an employee of the Department of Justice, back when they still believed in justice for everyone. And that's what he had to say about him. That's what Captain Bone Spurs had to say about a patriot, far more patriotic than Captain Bone Spurs has ever been. When the nation called Robert Mueller, he went and served with the United States Marine Corps. When the nation called Captain Bone Spurs, he got 5 deferments for Bone Spurs, even though he was in the marching band through college. So, who is more of the man. That's 5 times his nation called him. 5 times he refused. 5 times he flammed the rest of us. 5 Americans had to go in his place instead. I hope that none of those 5 were killed in action or wounded in action, because Captain Bone Spurs has no respect for them. We just see what he said about someone who was wounded in action, who received a Purple Heart in Vietnam. He said, Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. So let's don't be distracted. Bless your corazón. Have a great evening and a great rest of the week. And keep your powder dry. Stay frosty.
Beans shipping cross country on refrigerated trucks. And third, they take all and cook then model bush beans. In the 50s and 60s, convenience became king, and TV did it. Soaking overnight got made But here's what they couldn't tell. Old-fashioned means it actually works. Your great-grandfather didn't grow salad runners because they were tender. He grew them because when the bank foreclosed on farms across the